Hi, my name is John Starro, and I'm going to do a video that will be a show and tell all about some of my recent still life paintings that I've done in the last few years. And I'll show them one at a time, and I'll try to say a few things about them, just so that I can try to get them out into the light of the world instead of hidden away in a closet. Thank you for watching. Thanks. So this is an 11 by 14 painting of a bench vise. And it's the bench vise that I used as a kid when I started building model boats. And I still have the bench vise in my collection of stuff. So this front part is the thing that screws around and clamps to a table, and this part over here is the vise part that you use to hold things while you're working on them. I really enjoy rendering the shapes and the shadows and the highlights. This painting is a painting called Museum Chair. The reason I painted it was because I work in the museum for the last 34 years, and I walk through the galleries about 8 hours a day. And I often fantasize about sitting in the museum chairs. So that's why I painted this, so I'd have a place to sit, although literally you can't sit in a painting. But it's kind of fun to imagine. I also enjoyed rendering the highlights and shapes, obviously, here. This was painted this year, I think in 2021. This one is called Egg Beater Drill, and it's the Egg Beater drill for drilling holes, mechanical, that I use to make my model boats. And it was also the same drill that my father had that he used to make model boats. And it's probably quite antique, but I got very interested in the idea of figure-ground relationship, creating spaces in which to insert characters. So you might think of the Egg Beater drill as a character lying there in some kind of a space. It's 16 by, I can't remember the size, but it's kind of smallish. And anyway, I'll give it a long look. This one is, I think it's 11 by 14. It's a painting of a Pentax K1000, which is a famous kind of film camera that I bought. I still have it. I bought it when I was in art school in the early 1980s, and I used it a lot to shoot slides of my artwork. And I just got very involved with the highlights and the shapes of it. It even has a little hint of blue in the lens. This is one of the paintings I was working on during my furlough from work caused by the pandemic. I had nothing to do, I was bored, so I figured I'd paint all day, which was kind of cool. So this one you might call a non-still life, because the airplane is actually depicted in mid-flight. To make this painting, I had the actual model airplane suspended from threads in my studio, and I painted it with the background and set up the lights to get the shadows right. I actually built the airplane model out of balsa wood and tissue paper during my furlough from my job, from COVID. It's the second version of this painting. The first one I sold had the airplane sitting on the ground, ready to fly, which is kind of an interesting narrative. This is a portrait of a boat that I built in 1998, and the boat itself was about 40 inches long, and I sailed it a lot. It's radio controlled, and the painting itself is about 19 by 25-ish, and I'll just do a close-up. It's actually painted on a painting I hated, which is now painted over with this painting, but I kept the wood frame. I love the shapes of boats, who doesn't? And down here is the ballast keel, which is about 4 pounds of lead to keep it upright when it sails. I spent a long time trying to render these shadows to my satisfaction. I think it's reasonably okay. So this is a painting of one of my many sculptures that I've made, that I've made over the years, and the sculpture is called Suspended Wave. So is the painting. I'll just show it. The wave is a piece of wood that's shaped kind of wave-ish, and it's got wires that go between there and there to suspend it. Waves are very important to me for obvious reasons. I like water. I wanted one of them to be suspended so I could look at it. Did I already say it's about 20 inches long? Probably. Anyway, I love fooling around with paint. It's got a nice dark frame on it. It's pretty cool. Obviously this is a staple gun, but I really got involved with painting its shininess and its slightly menacing quality, and it sort of resembles an Albrecht Dürer rabbit. It's 11 by 14. I just finished it about a month ago. I'm interested in ordinary things. Speaking of ordinary, here's a radio transmitter that is used to control a radio-controlled airplane, and it resembles a menacing Darth Vader face with long jowls hanging down from its eyes. There's something about a radio transmitter resembling a human face that is interesting to me. I love messing around with shades of gray and white, highlights, and details. So this is a humidifier. It's a painting that I spent quite a while on recently, in the last week or so, trying to render all of those wires to not look lumpy and streaky. But I think I did a reasonably good job. I'm kind of liking the idea of ordinary objects. I'm liking the idea that you don't have to be a revolutionary. You can paint things that that are interesting. Here's one that's a painting of one of my old sculptures from 20 years ago. And it's also got a dollhouse furniture chair. The original sculpture had a motorized mechanism that was powered by that plug, which made that arm swing back and forth slowly using a clock mechanism. And the sculpture itself is part of a series of sculptures that were about the idea of a barge floating in the ocean and architectural elements growing out of the barge. The frame is actually a canvas stretcher, and the painting is on the back of another painting, an old painting that I found in my piles. Here's another one of my sculptures made of welded steel, and I brought the sculpture down to the basement of this building. And I put it on the floor and I photographed it to make the painting. Now the painting is about, I think it's 32 by 24, roughly. The sculpture itself was probably about that size. And let's zoom in. It's kind of like a spider just being discovered in the basement. I think it's painted over an old painting also that I didn't care about. And the frame needs a little cleaning up. But I like the crudeness of that. Keeping it real. This is a small one that's about, I think it's 9 by 12. It's one of my old welded steel sculptures from when I was in art school back in the 80s. And of course the painting is just recent. I really enjoy looking and looking and looking at all of the shadows and shapes and edges, stuff like that. Here's another one of my floating barge sculptures. This is probably about 32 by 20 something. I worked on it during my furlough, and here it is. Here's another sculpture painting. I think it's about 32 inches. The sculpture was late 90s and the painting is about 6 months ago. Still have the sculpture, and it had little colored threads wrapped around it, and it had a mysterious kind of like a spoon shape. It was like a pendulum that made that little airplane shape swing back and forth, hanging from screw eyes. Those are the screw eyes right there. Sort of like this one. It's made of paper mache, not the painting, the sculpture. This is called The Conversation. The two water fountain spigots talking to each other. This one says, "Hi, how are you?" That one says, "Pretty good, you?" This fountain is actually right around the corner from where I'm filming this, in my building where I live, which is a charming old building with a lot of character. I hope I'm not going too quick through these, but anyway. Another painting of a floating barge sculpture. The barge sculpture was around the late 1990s, and it's about 24 by 18, guessing. This was painted a year ago. I don't know what else to say. Here's a wind-up music box mechanism. And it's bigger than the mechanism for sure. The painting is like 2 feet wide. The mechanism itself was a lot smaller. I like the idea of imagining cranking it around and having it make music. Surprise, there's a screw. So this is a painting of one of my model boats that I made, called the Betsy. It's a cat boat, and the model is 2 feet long. Made it a few years ago. This is one of my first still lifes that I did during my furlough, and spent quite a while on it. It's got the little figure in there is the same figure that was on our wedding cake. It represented me. I guess it's my only self-portrait, huh? Looking through the gigantic binoculars. And last but not least, a non-still life of a teacup hovering in midair. I did it by hanging the teacup from threads. You get the idea. It's really just for fun. Here's another one of a sculpture which sort of looks like a moon lander. It's probably about 20 inches, painted a year ago. This sculpture right here actually exists. I have it somewhere, but these elements are completely imagined, and it's on the back of an old painting using the stretcher frame as a frame. That must be the guy walking on the moon. I don't know who he is, but anyway, maybe that's the chair he sits in. And this brown triangle was the front edge of the table that I painted all of my things